This session on building a resilient continent for sustainable peace and development is with a specific focus on the subject that I'm going to discuss, which is responsive and adaptive security approaches, promises of bilateral peace interventions or arrangements. It calls for a discussion, first and foremost, on existing approaches. And here we're talking about unilateral, where states operate on their own to solve problems; bilateral, where a state will work with another to solve security problems; and then we have multilateral, where we have this big animal that the IGP talked about yesterday, which has all of us. And the UN is very important for us in many ways. And this is the third aspect, which is multilateral. For the purpose of this discussion, allow me to narrow our focus on specific security challenges on the African continent, which you're probably all aware. Security threats such as terrorism, violent extremism, religious or otherwise, and the third, which is also common all over the continent, is non-state actors threatening to topple, or toppling actually, legitimately elected governments through violent means. Those are the three scenarios that are very common on the continent. Of course, the Sahel being the religious aspect, coming down Central African Republic with anti-Baraka and Seleka rebels fighting each other, and a state of anarchy requiring intervention. Coming to Mozambique, where Ansar al-Sunna wa Jamaa, a religious extremist group, decides to take the northern province of Cabo Delgado for 4 years. So these are the areas that I want to focus on, and then we shall debate on the effectiveness of existing approaches in dealing with these problems. And when I finalize with that, you will be the judge. And I want to give a caveat. I am a spokesperson of the RDF, so I will speak positively about the RDF. However, in this case, the facts speak for themselves, so I don't need to speak about RDF and RNP, by the way. In this case, we are together. So spokesperson RNP, I'm going to be your spokesperson. So in both cases, Mozambique and CAL, I can say that our bilateral interventions received multilateral consent. Very important. Received multilateral consent because they were justified interventions, and because we are dealing with threats that are global. In the case of Central African Republic, there was the threat of the CPC, Coalition of Patriotic Change, which was a coalition of all these militias attempting to topple a legitimately elected government in 2020 and to halt elections that were being held. So the former president, Francois Bozizé, grabbed these units and says, let's work together to topple a legitimate government, a government that was elected. And, they tried to capture Bangui, and they succeeded. They actually overran cities, and they were left with just 1 or 2 strongholds to be able to capture the center. And I want to state with clarity that we had MINUSCA, which has so many countries, and I'll just go through the list just to give you a picture. MINUSCA has Rwanda, which is the largest force contribute, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Egypt, Zambia, Morocco, Tunisia, Burundi, Cameroon for the army. And for the police, we have Rwanda, also the largest, Senegal, Mauritania, Cameroon, Djibouti, Egypt, Congo, Indonesia, Niger, and Togo, with a total of 22,523 personnel. 17,420 of them are armed. So they're supposed to be trained and ready to respond. And here's a scenario where you have this group there in Bangui, ready to defend the state against these groups. But they are busy overrunning towns. Why? Because in the mandate that was given to MINUSCA, their role is to protect civilians, okay? To ensure humanitarian assistance is provided to communities, facilitating, of course, the disarmament and demobilization of groups. But clearly, these groups are already using arms to try and topple the system. So if you use a litmus test, it tells you that to a large extent, the $1 billion point something that has been put to the table for certain activities have not been effectively implemented, despite the fact that we are also part and parcel of this animal. Okay? The government of Central African Republic had a bilateral relation with Rwanda, and they decided to adopt certain aspects of our agreement to ask us to support them, to bring a more offensive posture to the game, because the UN is limited by mandates and other conditions. So we went there with battle groups, and we managed to successfully dislodge these insurgents from all the areas that they had captured and maintained state authority. Today we are still there, and we are still managing the situation, and that CPC is a matter of history. Okay? So like I said, I'm not giving facts about the RDF and RNP out of a matter of bragging, but these are facts that are there, and they speak for themselves. So that is in regard to Central African Republic. Now let me go to Mozambique. Ansar al-Sunna wa Jamaa, a religious extremist group, took over the province of Cabo Delgado from 2017 to 2021, killed 3,000 innocent civilians, beheaded them, many of them, decapitated them, and led to the displacement of 800,000 refugees in camps for 4 years. And we had African Union, we had SADC, we had all these multilateral bodies standing there waiting to see how the situation unfolds further. Mozambique decided that, we also want a bilateral arrangement with Rwanda. So they, I think, based on what we did in 2020, and the evidence is in the timing, which was 2020. 2021, they approached us. They requested our president, and our president, who has the trust in our defense forces, our joint forces, said, can't we do this? Is it very difficult? Having chaired the AU, I think he has seen how some of these multilateral arrangements can also be very difficult to bring together. So he decided that we should act and set a precedence. So within 1 month, we were able to dislodge these terrorists, insurgents, from all their strongholds in Palma and Mocimboa de Praia. And we reinstated state authority in all these areas. And after that, SADC came. And it is okay. It is okay for it to come, because we need support. We need support from multilateral arrangements. And I will give you reasons why. You cannot act alone in many ways. There are many advantages of working with multilateral partners, and I will go through them one by one, just to show that I'm actually supportive of the UN framework. But I must stress with clarity that bilateral engagements have proven to be equally effective if they have the right cause and the commitment. Now, bilateral engagements have operational efficiency. You don't need to have doctrinal issues between different nations in order for you to operate effectively. So we don't have doctrinal contradictions. People fight as one entity and they have a mission and they will achieve it without political interactions or interruptions. Okay? That is one advantage. The second advantage is the decision-making and robustness of response. With bilateral engagements, the decision is made, the commander-in-chief has given the order, we have the requisite forces, we deploy. We look for resources, and because we are used to using little to achieve a lot, from our time when we were in the struggle, all the way, we have used little to achieve much. So we operated with what we had, and were able to achieve those objectives. The third issue is, of course, cost effectiveness. Now, that's where bilateral interventions kind of become difficult, because it is very expensive to go alone to support another nation. It is very expensive. So we had to pay the bill in order to be able to sustain ourselves in those operations. The fourth is legitimacy. Was our intervention legitimate? I can say with clarity still that it was very legitimate because we had multilateral consent. UN was very happy. EU even gave us 20 million US dollars, euros, immediately. Why? Because he said, you know, these people are doing something which we should have done, which all of us should do. So that shows that it is a legitimate act that can be supported by, different people. Is it sustainable? In the short run, it is. In the long run, I believe that we must work with multilateral partners in order to keep this going, because it's very expensive. And that is why the EU is supporting us, and we actually support any other entity joining us in solving problems. When SADC came in, we worked very closely with SADC. We shared intelligence and specific leads. And everywhere we have jointly operated, we have succeeded. So there's nothing wrong with working together. But the advantages of bilateral dealing with the problem have far superseded the existing multilateral setups. And therefore, we cannot debate about it. So multilateral approaches have a unique strength of being heavily financed. And therefore, we want to tap into that too. And that is why we cannot be against this big animal. Because this big animal has money. Okay? The ability to mobilize resources is very important in the long run. Its weakness, as Afande IGP clarified yesterday in a very eloquent way, its weakness is collective commitment. It's very hard to get it. Bureaucracy. You have to go to New York, consult, you have to write a mandate, you have to issue. That takes a lot of time. However, we can have a blended approach. And you asked me to look for responses. We can have a blended approach where bilateral interventions come in to deal with a problem that is urgent with multilateral consent, because UN supports you and others. And then we can also have the UN come in with all sorts of humanitarian support, because that's also very important in conflict situations. Once all that is successfully adopted, we can say that bilateral interventions can be married or blended with the multilateral undertakings. Again, I'm the spokesperson of the RDF, and my job is to speak positively about my army. But I must say that On this matter, facts and achievements speak for themselves. I rest my case. The proof is in the pudding. Thank you very much.